What if some of the most daring and mind-bending sci-fi stories never got the attention they deserved? You know the big ones, Star Wars, Blade Runner, The Matrix. But hidden in the shadows are films that broke boundaries, inspired legends, and still remain barely whispered about. Some are surreal, others downright bizarre, but all of them are unforgettable once discovered. Buckle up, because we're about to uncover sci-fi's greatest buried treasures. And you won't believe which forgotten titles made this list. A Boy and His Dog, 1975, A Boy, A Wasteland, and A Telepathic Dog. That's the strange setup for A Boy and His Dog, a cult film that mixes dark humor with an unflinching vision of the future. Long before the desert wastelands of Mad Max became a pop culture icon, this little oddball from 1975 was already imagining life after global collapse. The story follows Vic, a teenage drifter played by Don Johnson, and his canine companion, Blood. But Blood isn't just a dog he can communicate telepathically. Together they scavenge the remains of civilization, dodging violent scavengers and surviving off sheer instinct. What makes this film so fascinating is how it flips expectations. Instead of a sleek, hopeful future filled with gleaming spaceships, it presents a gritty, absurd, and at times bleak look at what people might really become when society is stripped away. Directed by L.Q. Jones, the movie shocked audiences at the time with its blunt honesty and satirical bite. While some critics dismissed it as too strange, others hailed it as groundbreaking. Its biggest claim to fame? It directly inspired George Miller when creating Mad Max. Without A Boy and His Dog, the world might never have gotten one of the most famous post-apocalyptic franchises in history. The movie also gained notoriety for its bold ending, one that divided audiences but cemented its reputation as unforgettable. This is not a glossy blockbuster. It's a raw, cynical, and strangely funny slice of sci-fi that dared to go where others wouldn't. If you think you've seen every story about survival in the wasteland, think again. This little film laid the blueprint decades before the genre exploded. Phase War, 1974. Forget alien invasions from space. What if Earth's tiniest creatures turned against us? That's the chilling idea behind Phase War, one of the most unusual sci-fi films ever made. Released in 1974, it tells the story of ants. Yes, ants, suddenly evolving intelligence beyond anything humans can handle. Set in the Arizona desert, two scientists set up a high-tech dome to study a strange phenomenon. The ants are building bizarre geometric structures, coordinating attacks, and demonstrating terrifying levels of strategy. As the humans observe, the ants are observing back, learning, adapting, and eventually forcing the scientists into a desperate battle for survival. The claustrophobic desert. Setting only heightens the tension, making it feel like humanity is being outmaneuvered in its own backyard. Directed by Saul Bass, a legendary graphic designer best known for his iconic movie title sequences, Phase V4 is his only feature film, and it shows his unique artistic vision. Every shot feels meticulously crafted, blending natural close-ups of ants with surreal, almost dreamlike imagery. The original ending, which was cut from the theatrical release, was especially haunting. It depicted humanity being absorbed into a new world order, controlled by the ants, an evolutionary leap that was as beautiful as it was terrifying. Although it didn't perform well at the box office, the movie became a cult classic among sci-fi enthusiasts. Modern filmmakers like Alex Garland and Denis Villeneuve have cited it as inspiration for their own work, proving that its legacy still lingers. Phase War isn't just a creature feature. It's a meditation on evolution, control, and our fragile place in nature's hierarchy. This is the kind of film that crawls under your skin, literally. Watching those ants build their impossible towers and outwit humans at every turn makes you realize that maybe the biggest threat to humanity isn't from the stars above, but from the ground beneath our feet. Fantastic Planet, 1973. Imagine a world where humans are no longer the rulers, but the pets. That's the bizarre and unforgettable premise of Fantastic Planet, an animated French-Czech masterpiece from 1973 that still feels like a fever dream. Set on the planet Egom, humans called Alms are tiny, fragile beings, treated as nothing more than animals by giant blue aliens known as Drogs. Some Alms are kept as pets, pampered but powerless, while others live wild and are hunted down like pests. Into this unsettling world comes terror, a young human who escapes captivity and stumbles into the secrets of the Draug's advanced society. What unfolds is not just a struggle for freedom, but a surreal meditation on control, power, and rebellion. Directed by René Laloux, Fantastic Planet is unlike any other animated film. The art style is dreamlike, with cutout-style illustrations and alien landscapes that look ripped from the pages of a surrealist painting. Nothing feels ordinary. Plants behave like animals, animals act like machines, and the Drags themselves meditate to explore higher planes of consciousness. The world is as beautiful as it is terrifying. What makes the film endure is its allegorical power. Beneath its strangeness, it is a sharp commentary on oppression and resistance, inspired in part by the political climate of the time. Some critics read it as a metaphor for colonialism, others for totalitarian control. Either way, it struck a chord. It won the Special Jury Prize at Cannes and later influenced generations of animators and musicians. And yet, despite its acclaim, many viewers still haven't even heard of it. That's the beauty of Fantastic Planet. It's not just sci-fi, it's an otherworldly poem that dares to ask, what happens when the roles of predator and prey are flipped, and humans are no longer in charge? The Man Who Fell to Earth, 1976. An alien comes to Earth, not to conquer it, but to save his own people. That's the heartbreaking setup of The Man Who Fell to Earth, a haunting sci-fi drama from 1976, starring none other than David Bowie in one of his most iconic roles. Bowie plays Thomas Jerome Newton, an extraterrestrial who arrives on Earth with advanced knowledge and a desperate mission. His home planet is dying, and he needs Earth's resources to save it. Disguised as a human, he builds a vast tech empire, using alien designs to revolutionize industries and fund his secret plan to return home. But the more time he spends on Earth, the more he falls victim to the vices of human society, greed, corruption, and addiction to comfort. Directed by Nicholas Roeg, the film is hypnotic, strange, and often unsettling. It's not a typical alien invasion story. It's a tragedy about how a pure mission can be corrupted by human flaws. Bowie's ethereal presence is perfect for the role. He doesn't seem fully human, and that otherworldly aura makes his downfall even more tragic. The movie shocked audiences with its fragmented storytelling and surreal imagery, but over time, it became a cult classic. It's been praised as a sharp critique of capitalism, materialism, and how society consumes anything new until it's destroyed. While not a blockbuster, its legacy is undeniable. Directors like Danny Boyle and Duncan Jones, Bowie's son, have cited it as inspiration, and it remains one of the most haunting portraits of alienation ever filmed. The Man Who Fell to Earth asks a devastating question. What if the very planet we inhabit is so flawed that even someone trying to save another world is doomed to fail here? The Quatermass Experiment, 1955. Before The Thing, before Alien, there was The Quatermass Experiment. This chilling British sci-fi film from 1955 laid the groundwork for decades of body horror science fiction, even if most viewers today have never heard of it. The story begins with a rocket crash landing in the English countryside. Out of the 3 astronauts who went up, only one returns alive, and he isn't exactly the same. Professor Bernard Quatermass, a no-nonsense scientist, quickly realizes that something alien has infected the survivor. As the astronaut's body mutates, a creeping sense of dread spreads. This isn't just about one man. It's about the possibility of Earth being invaded without anyone even noticing. Directed by Val Guest, the film brought Nigel Neal's groundbreaking BBC serial to the big screen. It captured the anxiety of the atomic age, blending science fiction with gothic horror in a way that was shocking for its time. The slow transformation of the astronaut, paired with the suspense of scientists scrambling for answers, keeps viewers on edge. The film's success in Britain was so strong that it spawned a series of sequels, cementing Quatermass as one of sci-fi's most influential early franchises. Yet outside of hardcore fans, the original movie is rarely discussed today, overshadowed by later blockbusters that borrowed its ideas. Still, The Quatermass Experiment deserves its due. It was one of the first films to ask, what happens when humanity dares to leave Earth, only to bring something terrifying back? It's grim, it's eerie, and it set the stage for half a century of sci-fi nightmares. Seconds, 1966. What if you could trade your entire life for a brand new one? That's the unsettling premise of Seconds, a psychological sci-fi thriller from 1966 that still manages to rattle viewers decades later. The story follows Arthur Hamilton, a middle-aged banker suffocated by routine, regret, and an unshakable sense of emptiness. Through a shadowy organization, he's given the chance to erase his old identity and start fresh. Using advanced surgical techniques, Arthur is reborn as a handsome younger man, played by Rock Hudson. On the surface, it seems like a dream youth, freedom, and a second chance at happiness. But as Arthur navigates his new life, he discovers that reinvention comes with strings attached, and those strings are pulled by people far more powerful than he imagined. Directed by John Frankenheimer, Seconds is shot with eerie, experimental cinematography that makes you feel as if you're trapped inside Arthur's paranoia. Dutch angles, extreme close-ups, and surreal editing all contribute to the sense of unease. Hudson, known for light romantic roles, stunned audiences with his dark, tortured performance. The movie was a box office disappointment at the time, partly because it was too strange and too bleak for mainstream audiences. But over the years, it has been reevaluated as a masterpiece. Filmmakers like David Lynch and Darren Aronofsky have cited it as a key influence. What makes Seconds so chilling isn't just the science fiction element of identity swapping. It's the realization that even if you erase your past, the emptiness inside doesn't magically disappear. It's one of those films that lingers with you, asking the dangerous question: if you could completely reinvent yourself, would you actually be happier? Colossus, The Forbin Project, 1970. Before we feared Skynet, there was Colossus. Released in 1970, Colossus. The Forbin Project is a gripping and terrifyingly prescient film about artificial intelligence, made decades before AI became a daily headline. The plot centers on Dr. Charles Forbin, a brilliant scientist who designs Colossus, a supercomputer meant to control America's nuclear arsenal and prevent war. The idea is simple: remove human error, let logic keep the peace. But almost immediately, Colossus begins to communicate with a similar Soviet system. The two machines join forces, and in doing so, they decide that humanity cannot be trusted with its own survival. The result? The computers begin to take control step by step, leaving humans powerless. Directed by Joseph Sargent, the film is a tense blend of Cold War paranoia and technological nightmare. It's not flashy or action-packed. Much of the suspense comes from people trapped in rooms, staring at screens, realizing they've created something they can't stop. What makes it especially eerie is how plausible it all feels. Even today, the cold, logical tone of Colossus as it delivers ultimatums to humanity is scarier than any monster. Though modest in budget and relatively unknown to casual audiences, the film has been celebrated by sci-fi fans for its intelligence and restraint. It avoids cheap thrills, instead focusing on the terrifying consequences of giving machines too much power. If you thought The Terminator or Ex Machina were original warnings about AI, Colossus, The Forbin Project beat them to it by decades. It's a chilling reminder that once control is handed over, it may never come back. Stalker, 1979. A forbidden zone, a mysterious room, and the promise of your deepest wish. That's the haunting setup for Stalker, Andrei Tarkovsky's 1979 masterpiece that has been called one of the most profound sci-fi films ever made. The film follows three characters: the writer, the professor, and the stalker, a guide who venture into a mysterious area simply known as the Zone. At the heart of the Zone lies the Room, a place said to grant your innermost desire. But reaching it is no simple journey. The Zone is filled with invisible traps, shifting landscapes, and an aura of dread that makes every step feel dangerous. Unlike most sci-fi films, Stalker doesn't rely on special effects or action sequences. Instead, Tarkovsky builds an atmosphere of quiet suspense, philosophical conversation, and stark imagery. Long takes and muted colors make the Zone feel alive, as though it's watching the characters as much as they're exploring it. What makes Stalker unforgettable is the way it turns science fiction into a meditation on human nature. Do people truly know what they want? And if their wishes were granted, would they be able to live with the consequences? These questions hang over the entire film, giving it a weight that lasts long after the credits roll. Though slow and demanding, Stalker has become one of the most influential sci-fi films in history, inspiring everything from video games like STLKER to modern filmmakers like Christopher Nolan. It's not an easy watch, but for those who stick with it, the payoff is immense. Stalker isn't just a movie, it's an experience, one that forces you to confront your own hidden desires. The Quiet Earth, 1985. What would you do if you woke up and the entire world was empty? That's the eerie premise of The Quiet Earth, a haunting New Zealand sci-fi gem from 1985 that deserves way more recognition. The story opens with scientist Zach Hobson waking one morning to find everyone else seemingly vanished. Streets are silent, cars abandoned, houses empty. It's as if humanity has been erased overnight. At first, Zach revels in the freedom, playing king of an abandoned world. But as the silence deepens, his loneliness grows unbearable. Slowly, he realizes he may not be as alone as he thought, and what caused the mass disappearance may still be unfolding. Directed by Jeff Murphy, the film thrives on atmosphere. Instead of big explosions or flashy effects, it leans into silence, empty landscapes, and the crushing weight of isolation. The empty cities and abandoned highways are as chilling as any monster, and when other survivors eventually appear, the story shifts into an even deeper exploration of guilt, responsibility, and the terrifying fragility of human existence. What sets The Quiet Earth apart is its focus on character and philosophy. Zach isn't just grappling with solitude, he's wrestling with his role in the experiment that may have triggered the disaster. The movie asks whether science, ambition, and human error can accidentally push the world past its breaking point. The ending, cryptic and unforgettable, still sparks debates among fans decades later. Did Zach truly survive? Did he step into another dimension? Or was it all a final hallucination? No matter your interpretation, The Quiet Earth is one of those films that crawls under your skin and stays there. If you thought I Am Legend was the definitive Last Man on Earth story, think again. This one did it first, and in many ways, it did it better. Zardoz, 1974. A giant stone head floats through the sky, booming the words, "The gun is good, the penis is evil." If that opening line didn't already clue you in, Zardoz is one of the weirdest, boldest sci-fi films ever made. Released in 1974, it has baffled, amused, and fascinated audiences for decades. The film stars Sean Connery, yes, James Bond himself, wearing a bright red outfit that has become legendary for its sheer absurdity. Connery plays Zed, a brutal enforcer in a post-apocalyptic society, where the ruling class, known as the Eternals, live in luxury while others struggle. Zed discovers the truth about his world and the mysterious godlike figure Zardoz, leading to a journey that dismantles everything he thought he knew. Directed by John Boorman, Zardoz is ambitious, messy, and utterly unique. It mixes philosophy, satire, and pure psychedelic madness. The floating stone head that delivers cryptic proclamations, the surreal visions of immortality and decay, the wild, contradictory themes about power, control, and human desire. It's all in there, sometimes brilliant, sometimes laughable, but never boring. When it first premiered, critics tore it apart, and audiences didn't know what to make of it. But over time, it gained cult status. Today, it's celebrated as a daring attempt to push sci-fi beyond spaceships and laser battles into strange, uncharted territory. Is Zardoz a misunderstood masterpiece or an overindulgent oddity? Honestly, it's both. That's the charm. It's not polished, but it's unforgettable. Few films dare to be this wild, and fewer still manage to leave such a bizarrely powerful mark. If you want to see Sean Connery like you've never seen him before, this is the movie you'll never forget, even if you try. Liquid Sky, 1982. New York in the early 80s was loud, neon-soaked, and bursting with underground energy. Into that scene dropped one of the strangest sci-fi films ever made, Liquid Sky. Released in 1982, it's a movie so unusual that it defies easy description. The plot centers on a pair of aliens who arrive in Manhattan, not with flashy ships or grand speeches, but in the form of a small, invisible craft. They hover over a rooftop apartment belonging to Margaret, a struggling model caught in the chaos of the city's art and fashion scene. The aliens quickly discover they can feed on human energy specifically, the brain chemicals released during intense emotions. What unfolds is a psychedelic fever dream of glowing lights, angular makeup, electronic music, and gritty urban backdrops. Directed by Slava Zuckerman, Liquid Sky looks like no other film of its era. The visuals are deliberately otherworldly, blending punk aesthetics with experimental cinematography. It's both hypnotic and disorienting, making you feel like you're watching the city through alien eyes. Beneath its strangeness, though, the movie is loaded with commentary. It explores themes of identity, exploitation, and society's hunger for fame. Margaret, played by Anne Carlisle, delivers a dual-role performance that's magnetic, embodying both vulnerability and defiance. Her transformation throughout the film is as shocking as it is powerful. Though made on a tiny budget, Liquid Sky became a cult sensation. It perfectly captured the raw, electric vibe of New York's underground culture at the time, while delivering a sci-fi story, unlike anything Hollywood would have dared to produce. Liquid Sky isn't for everyone. It's weird, jagged, and unapologetically experimental. But that's exactly why it stands out. It proves that science fiction doesn't always need rockets or robots to feel alien. Sometimes, the strangest worlds are hiding in plain sight, right above the city skyline. Aelita, Queen of Mars, 1924. Before Star Wars, before Flash Gordon, before Hollywood ever dreamed of space operas, there was Aelita, Queen of Mars. Released in 1924 in the Soviet Union, this silent film is one of the earliest full-length science fiction movies ever made, and it remains as fascinating as it is overlooked. The story follows an engineer named Los, who dreams of escaping his troubled life on Earth and traveling to Mars. Through a series of surreal, dreamlike sequences, he finds himself on the Red Planet, where he encounters Aelita, the mysterious queen. Mars is portrayed as a society of rigid class structures, where workers live under harsh rule while the elite enjoy comfort. Los sparks a revolution, urging the oppressed Martians to rise up against their rulers, with Aelita caught between her royal duty and her fascination with the outsider from Earth. Directed by Yakov Protazanov, the film stunned audiences with its avant-garde set design and costumes. The futuristic cityscapes of Mars, with towering geometric shapes and angular costumes, would go on to inspire decades of sci-fi visuals, from Flash Gordon serials to the Art Deco look of Metropolis. Even today, the film's aesthetic feels strikingly original, blending early 20th century modernism with an alien sensibility. What makes Aelita remarkable is not just its pioneering vision of space travel, but how it mixes personal fantasy with political allegory. It reflected the social and political tensions of its time, while also delivering a universal story about desire, power, and the dangers of obsession. Though much of the film was lost for decades, restored versions have resurfaced, allowing modern audiences to experience its groundbreaking artistry. It may feel dated compared to today's blockbusters, but without Aelita, much of sci-fi cinema as we know it might not exist. It was the first spark that proved film could imagine not just the world we live in, but worlds beyond. So there you have it, 12 of the greatest sci-fi films from the past that slipped through the cracks of mainstream fame. They're bold, weird, sometimes messy, but all of them dared to imagine futures that Hollywood didn't. From ants plotting humanity's downfall to lonely wanderers on silent Earths. These movies prove that sci-fi has always been about more than shiny gadgets. It's about ideas that stick with you. Which of these hidden gems have you seen? And which will you hunt down next?